Hello and welcome to the Student Experience podcast, where we'll be chatting to members of the University of Suffolk community, giving them the opportunity to share their experience with us. I'm Sam and I'm a member of the Student Experience and Engagement team, and in today's episode we're joined by Daisy Robinson, who is the Access and Participation Manager. We discussed her role at the university and the important work the Access and Participation team does with the local community. Okay, Daisy, would you like to introduce yourself and your role at the university?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Daisy Robinson and I am an Access and Participation Manager here at the University of Suffolk.
Cool. So what is access and participation?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. Do you know what, actually, I think most of my family and friends go, we know you work at a university, but what do you actually do? I feel like access and participation and things like that fall underneath that are things like outreach, widening participation, widening access, which for a lot of really big universities in the UK have massive teams working behind them, and it kind of fits all within that kind of student, so young students, secondary school students, sometimes primary school students, working out in the community. So when we talk about access, widening participation, widening access and outreach, it kind of sits alongside student recruitment in that we're all going out to schools and community groups within our local community to work with young people to raise awareness around what progression routes are available to the young people out there in the communities that we work with. So when we talk about widening access, we talk about supporting young people and understanding that university is available for them. So we talk about things such as student finance, and we really break down student finance so that it isn't a big scary thing. It isn't the big thing that the newspapers like to show it as, which is you'll be in loads of student debt. We hate the word debt because we don't like to refer to it as debt. And we really try and break down like what student finance is, how to make it work for you, how to budget well for university. So sometimes we run like workshops with young people where we bring like shopping bags in and we do like, you could buy this from Waitrose and it's £3, or you could buy this from Aldi and it's 89p. Which decision, which can you afford? So that's the kind of thing that we do with like widening access and outreach, which is part of my role. So sitting alongside that kind of information, advice and guidance, we like to call it, is kind of the widening participation element. So that is very specific, and that is working with students that we know in our local communities that are underrepresented in our institution. So again, every university in the UK will do this. They will look at their local data sets, they will look at schools that are within their local area, and they will start to look at what their student body is like and who makes up their student body. And then they will start to go, in line with our student body, who is underrepresented within our student body. So if you look at areas or universities in London, they have high levels of multiculturalism. There's lots of different university students that are going there, lots of different ethnicities. So they will have a slightly different remit of who their widening participation students would be. However, for the University of Suffolk, we're a very white university and we don't have a lot of multiculturalism because of the area that we're in Suffolk. So we try to work with students from underrepresented backgrounds in terms of global majority students, minority students, where we will support them in making decisions around, is university the best fit for them? If it is University of Suffolk somewhere where they would like to go? Does it fit their skill sets? What subject areas they're interested in? So our kind of key priorities for the University of Suffolk and the data sets that we work with when looking at widening access, widening participation students, is students who are on free school meals. So Suffolk has a really, really high level of students that are currently receiving free school meals at secondary school. So we support those students in paying for trips to the University of Suffolk, putting on taster days, going out to schools and doing activities such as budgeting, finance, just really simple activities like why go to university to begin with, like why is university important, how could it benefit you, what are the benefits to going to HE, what could it give you in the future. We like to do a bit of progression planning, so like we'll talk to students and they'll say, I want to be a footballer, and they say, that's really cool, if that doesn't work out, we do sports science, this is all the amazing equipment that we have here at the university, and with sports science you can go on to do this and this. Other students that we work with in terms of our data sets who are underrepresented at the University of Suffolk are students from a Roma background. So in Ipswich in particular, we have a really high level of students that come from families that are Roma ethnicity. So we work with those students to show again that university could be available to them. One of the biggest barriers that we notice with all of the groups that we work with, the underrepresented groups that we work with, are barriers such as not even knowing that there is a university in Ipswich or in Suffolk. Wow. They sometimes look at the big scary building on the waterfront and it being like absolutely no-go. It's too big, it's too scary, there's too many scary looking people walking in and out of there, so I don't even want to step into the building. And we do a lot of work with families, so we do a lot of work with parents, carers, school teachers, community groups, other family members, to try and bring them into the university, to show them that university, the building, is not scary, it's not a big scary place, we're not scary people, and that university, if you want it to be, can be very much for you. So that was a massively long way of describing what my role is as an access participation manager. But yeah, that's what I do. So we as a team go out into local schools and do all of that work. We are in charge of what's called an access and participation plan that every university in the UK has to have. That is a plan that we submit to the Office for Students, and the Office for Students regulate us against the targets that we're setting. So those are targets such as increasing free school meal students coming to the University of Suffolk, increasing students from a global majority background coming to the University of Suffolk. So we have to report on those targets, so we have a very robust plan in place. So that's what my team manage. And then we also manage a project called NICO, which is the Take Your Place project, which we mentioned earlier, prior to this podcast even starting, for those that weren't listening in at that point, which is everyone. So the Take Your Place programme is, again, a project that's funded by Office for Students. It's part of a wider national Uni Connect programme, and that programme is very, very specific in it gives, so the local government, central government, gives money to these programmes in local areas, and we deliver a very bespoke level of activities along a framework that support students from, we call them target students, but they're students living in postcodes that have traditionally gained, students that live in those postcodes, really good GCSE results, but the correlation doesn't equate in terms of numbers to students progressing into FE or HE education. So FE is further education. So therefore, progression rates are quite low when you look at it in line with GCSE rates. So we target those postcodes, and we target those postcodes, or students living in those postcodes, with very bespoke particular activities that again looks at information, advice and guidance, activities around why going to university, and then we have to report back to our central team that are based at the University of Cambridge. So Take Your Place has 5 universities that work all together in East Anglia looking at supporting those students from target postcodes. That's my job role that I think I just talked about for about 10 minutes straight.
That's good.
No, that's amazing.
Did that make sense? Was there anything that you were I've never heard of that word or term before, or?
Not as far as I
No,
know.
That's
Very clear and concise.
Okay. Was it concise? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you covered a lot of topics in a short amount of time.
I feel like at that point I was like, what have I not mentioned?
No, that was amazing. Would you say that sort of outside of the services that your team provides, there's not a lot of information for these students to work with?
I think that in my field that we work in, so widening access and sort of access and participation plans, whenever I go and work, we collaborate. We love to collaborate in the field that I'm in. It's a massive element of the work that we do is collaborating with other universities and other institutions so that we can start to understand what works best, what actually works when supporting these students. So it's a little bit different to student recruitment. So if you look at student recruitment in universities, it's very competitive, sales pitching, it is getting those students to come to your institution. Whereas where I'm working in the field that I work in widening access, it's all about supporting students in general. If you want to come to our institution, that's great. We're always going to push the University of Suffolk and all of its wonderful opportunities that it has here, not just for students but for staff members as well. So we do advertise what we do, but it is all about the wider elements that surround going to university or going to do a high degree apprenticeship or doing further study that we support students with. So I completely forgot your question because I was
just about other opportunities.
Other opportunities, sorry. So I think across the sector, because we like to collaborate and talk to other universities a lot, there is this big question over actually, do students in secondary schools and sixth form colleges receive enough information, or do they receive too much? Is it too saturated? Or do they receive the right information? So a lot of the work we do is actually going back out to the student bodies that we work with and asking them those questions. Because I started this work 6 years ago and the world has dramatically changed in those 6 years. So what we were delivering 6 years ago actually isn't relevant to the students that we're working with now. They've gone through COVID, they've gone through a cost of living crisis, they're going through massive changes in like technology, how their grades are being examined when they're in secondary school and sixth forms. So we have to constantly be adapting. So I think if you asked me that question 6 years ago, I would have gone, there's like nothing out there, there's no information for students. Students are finding it really hard to know if university, degree apprenticeships, FE colleges, job, gap year, what's the right choice for them. I think now we're at a point where there's so much information that it's becoming too saturated, and actually some of the work that we need to do within this field is working out what works best. And a way that we're doing that, which is really exciting, is by doing a lot of evaluation work and a lot of research as a sector into what works best. That's a big shift in mindset by the Office for Students, where they're telling us as our regulators that we have to report to, that we have to be constantly evaluating everything that we do to be able to put research back into the field to say, do you know what, mentoring, one-to-one mentoring, what does that even mean with a student? If you're sat down one-to-one, does one-to-one mentoring with a secondary school student work? Is that going to support them in applying to HE? Or does a coaching model work where actually you're flipping the whole script of mentoring and sitting down with a young person and going, you can solve your own problems. It's not me sat here telling you this is how you apply to UCAS, this is how you do it. It's about flipping that whole script and going, well, what do you think? How do you feel to build resilience into a young person's that kind of mindset? So yeah, that constant kind of loop of doing activity, doing a programme, and then evaluating it, researching it, impact evaluating it, and then putting that back into the sector as conference papers, presentations, talking to other universities, is a massive part of what we do, so that we can understand, is the market saturated? Is there too much information? Is there too little? Are we doing the right things? So yeah, I would say there's loads, but the students that we need to target, I don't think always find the right information, and that's like the vital part of what we do.
I think when I was a year 11, year 12 student, I think if I heard the word university, I would just switch off and I'd be like, that's not for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I wouldn't know that information.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if someone like Access Participation came in and spoke to me more directly, then I probably would listen to him more.
Yeah.
I mean, I ended up going to university, obviously it was great. But at the time I was like, that's not for me, I'll just switch off.
Absolutely.
But your sort of programme helped that.
Absolutely, and as I said, it's about getting the right information to the right type of student. So if you talk to a student that both their parents have gone to university, their idea of what university is very, very, very different to working with a young person who both their parents haven't gone to university, or whoever they're living with has never even, really thought about university before. So we call those students first generational students. So first gen students are kind of our biggest audience, because when you sit at home around a dinner table, or when you're travelling with your parents or hanging out with your parents, if young people do want to hang out with their parents, but there are times where if your parents have gone to university, it comes up as a natural part of the conversation. If your parent goes to you, or carer goes, what are you doing when you leave sixth form? Like, do you want to work? Do you want to travel? What are your thoughts and feelings? If your parent has gone to university, they will give you a wealth of knowledge that they might not even think that they're giving you, that just conversation around, oh yeah, this is when I went to uni, when I went to a polytechnic. I feel like that's way too far back maybe for some parents, but when I did that, this is how much it cost. I had so much fun. I joined all these societies, I made loads of friends. Your Auntie Jane is one of my friends from uni, we go way back, all of that stuff. If you're a first generational student, you don't have any of those conversations. So when you're first approaching thinking about what's next, you've got none of that kind of additional knowledge built up in your kind of repertoire of like understanding, because, and it's through no fault of those students, no fault of their own, but it's just not there, it's not spoken about. And there's a really interesting theory, and I'm not going to go too far into like theoretical like frameworks, but there's a really interesting theory called cultural capitals by a theorist called Bourdieu, who he looks at cultural capitals as being kind of the biggest thing for young people, for students, in understanding whether or not they feel comfortable in going to university and going to HE. Because if you have lots of cultural capital, that is what we just talked about. You will know your parents, if they've gone to university, they've got family, friends that have gone to university. You would have cultural capital in terms of your connections. You might have a dad that maybe works in a job where he's a lawyer, he's in finance, or he might be doing something that you need a degree in order to go and do that job. So therefore, when you need work experience to put on your UCAS application, you've got that work experience opportunity there. You've got people that you could go talk to through family connections to help you understand what the potential subject you want to do at university is like. That's called cultural capital and social capital, and it gives you those capitals that gives you kind of that leg up, if you will, into understanding what a university is like when you are there. If you're a first generation student, you might not have any of that cultural capital, you might not have any of that social capital. So therefore, we suggest that you're put as at a disadvantaged or an unadvantaged student, where you might not have those work experience opportunities, you might not have the reading abilities, the extracurricular stuff that you need to put on your applications to help with your UCAS applications. It just makes things a little bit harder. Then when you get to university, if you're a first generation student, you might suffer what we call a lack of sense of belonging, where you get here and you go, this is so far removed from anything that I've done before, potentially, or the conversations when I'm sat in lectures with academics is so far removed from anyone that I've ever met before in my life. And then you start feeling those feelings of, I'm an imposter, I don't belong here, this isn't for people like me. So that, in a nutshell, is what we try to do before students even get to university, is improve all of those things like cultural capital, providing money to schools to get them on trips to the University of Suffolk, so students come and see a building, come and have a taster session, meet an academic before they're even here, so that it removes that sense of apprehension, and it moves that kind of, it gives them a bit of cultural capital, it gives them that bit of a leg up, so that when they're here, hopefully it removes that sense of imposter syndrome, that sense of, I don't belong here, people like me do not belong here, so that when they're here, they're successful, they're continuing on their courses, they're retaining their course places, and then they're progressing when they leave here into graduate jobs, just as at the same rate as a student who had parents that have gone to university.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you don't think about in regards to that. You may think, oh, it's mostly just going and doing a presentation or having a chat with students, but it goes so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And there's so much to consider when looking at a student coming to university for the first time, and things that you would never really think about on the surface.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so you say you've been doing it for 6 years.
Yeah.
So have you been able to see the data, the progress that you've made?
Yeah. So I joined University of Suffolk 6 years ago. Was it 6 years ago? Yeah, May 2018. So like 6 years ago this month. And I joined as one of the staff members who we call on the ground, so an officer. We used to be called Higher Education Champions, which I quite enjoyed. And so I was actually based in schools. So I would go out to schools in like Mildenhall, Stowmarket, Bury, St Edmunds Way. So I was sort of in the west of Suffolk. And I would be in schools every day, working with students, delivering the programme, the Take Your Place programme. And then, the opportunity came up to like move into the management role and the management side. So then I do a lot more of I manage the programme, co-manage the programme, and support the team members that are going out into schools. And then as part of my role as a manager, we look at the data quite a lot, and we look at what we're achieving. So we have a really robust data system called HEAT, which stands for the Higher Education Access Tracker, that again loads of universities in the UK use. It's a massive database basically, which means that you can import into it every single secondary school in Suffolk and all of their students that go to that secondary school. And it gives you lots of data on their student characteristics. We get consent for all of this, by the way, so don't panic anyone that's listening and they're like, how do they do that? This is GDPR. You should not be doing this. We get consent from all the schools and all the students and all the parents. And we are able to see student characteristic at a real detailed level. So free school meals, if they're living in our target postcodes, their male, female, ethnicity, if they are a care experience student, for example, so have come from a care background, if they're estranged from their parents potentially, we can see all of that information. And then you're able to do some really cool stuff, like whenever we do an activity, we upload it to HEAT and we attach students to that activity. So you can start looking at activity level, what activities that we've run at the University of Suffolk what has been successful. Probably should have mentioned that the other thing that this HEAT database can do is that you can track students from year 9 all the way through and see if they apply to university when HESA, which is another regulatory body that I actually don't know what the acronym stands for, But HESA data comes out every year, and it tells you in your area which students have actually applied to university. So the really cool thing about HEAT is we can see a student that we've worked with in year 9, and we can see every single activity they've done with us as a programme, so University of Suffolk and Take Your Place. Then hopefully when they get to the end of year 13 or their level 3 year 2 year at college, you will be able to see, or we will be able to see with our data that we get from HESA, if they've applied to university and if we've been successful. And then through our internal data at the University of Suffolk, we can then use our internal data through UCAS to see if they've actually applied to a course with us. So then you can start doing some really funky things like what activities work. There's some cool statistical stuff we can do, like if they do a campus visit, a taster session, 5 mentoring sessions, a why go to university and a student finance, statistically more students are therefore likely to apply to us as an institution than if they just did one campus visit and that was it. So you can start to do some really cool stuff with the data, which I really love. It makes me a bit geeky. And then you can do some stuff at like an activity level where you can start to look at so we work with Suffolk 1 sixth form, that's like on the outskirts of Ipswich. Outskirts of Ipswich? Yeah, outskirts of Ipswich. We do loads of stuff with them, so we like to bring those students onto campus as much as we can. So every year we do a little data export of like how many students from Suffolk 1 have we brought on campus this year, and for which subject taster days. So we'll do very specific like health and social care visits, psychology visits, sociology visits, sport visits, etc. And then you can find the list of students in our HEAT database, and then you can go onto our University of Suffolk UCAS data and see if those students actually applied to us. So in the last 5 years, we have increased application rates in quite a lot of our Suffolk sixth form colleges, which is great. Some of our colleges are a little bit lower than what we would like to have seen in terms of like a correlation, like progression correlation, which just means we've got more work to do. It means that for those people that are listening to this and know what the FE, so further education landscape, is like, FE colleges are really hard to target the kind of students that we want to bring onto campus and applying to us here. So it just means that we then go back to the drawing board and go, well, looking at our data, what's working, what activities are ensuring that students are applying here from colleges, and what's not working, and what do we need to change. So that means going back out to colleges, talking to staff members in colleges and going, what are you noticing about students coming through your colleges now? And it means talking to college students, like, what are your priorities? Like, what is stopping you from applying to HE? One of the biggest things that we're hearing from, so we work really closely with West Suffolk College and Bury, that are part of the Eastern Colleges group that own Suffolk 1, and they own Abbeygate in Bury as well. So they own 3 big colleges. And something that we are hearing from them, that I think if people are listening to this podcast that are staff members here, maybe academics that always come to us and go, why are application rates not going up? Is that college students are finding, with the cost of living crisis, and this is coming from their teachers and from them themselves, that a lot of students are leaving college after their first year of study, or completing their college courses but not getting as good grades because they are having to go out and work to support their family households. So a lot of students in colleges will come from, or potentially will come from, families that have their own businesses, own their own shops, restaurants, takeaways, nail salons, barber shops, whatever. They'll own their own businesses. And because of the cost of living crisis, those families are trying to do everything they can to keep their businesses going. And so that is using family labour, family support in keeping their business afloat. So we're finding that a lot of students from places like West Suffolk College, Suffolk New, are not being able to study as much as they want, or not being able to attend their courses as much as they want, or dropping out altogether because there is a big emphasis at the moment in the cost of living crisis in providing for the family household. So the job we have as access staff and as recruitment staff and as an institution is, how do we find those students? What do they need from us? How do we support them further? And then if we get them here, those circumstances aren't going to change. So when they're students with us, what do we need to do to give them, to support them in being able to study when they're on course with us, so that they're not having that constant like push and pull of, I really want to study hard for my first year at university, I've got exams, I've got an assignment at the end of block 1, but I also need to go and support Dad's businesses whatever he's doing. So yeah, it all kind of like goes into that big loop and big cycle of, if you look at what's happening when students are on course with us, how do we support them? way back down the line in secondary schools and in FE colleges.
That's brilliant. I love the sort of evidence-informed decision making.
Yeah.
It's really important,
It's a big part of what we've got to do. Otherwise, like, how do you know what works?
Yeah.
You don't. So, yeah, that is a big emphasis on what we like to do. It's also what our regulators want us to do, so there is like that. I don't want to say tick box. It's not, because it's really interesting, but we do have to provide that evidence. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's some really cool stuff that you can do in this job. Like, it's very creative. It's very innovative. Like, staff members that we have working on the ground in schools constantly come up with really cool ways to like target students and support students, and it's really interesting. It's really creative.
So I mean, so you've been doing it for 6 years. So have you seen students that you maybe went for a taster day and then all the way through to graduation?
Yeah,
that must be really cool.
It's really cool. So when I first started here 6 years ago, I worked at Stowmarket High. And I used to go there one day a week, and I did like a whole range of stuff. So when I went there one day a week, it wasn't just like going in and sitting on a laptop in like a library. I would be like I'd do like a presentation first thing in an assembly, and then I would do a PHSE class, and then I'd go to a maths class and talk about like why is it important to get a grade 4. In old money, that's a grade C in GCSE maths. Why is that important in terms of next steps? And then I do some one-to-ones in the afternoon with students that were applying to university and wanted me to see their like student personal statement. And so I supported one student who I knew was applying to us and UEA for paramedic science, and they were in year 13, and I know that they'd applied to 2 places, and I wasn't sure which they'd like accepted, like which course they'd accepted. And then I had to leave that school because I was like being put in another school for more hours. And I thought this was just before COVID, I feel like. So then we went into COVID, and then we did like a day on campus, and I saw this student who I'd supported applying to us, sat with their personal statement, like sent it all off, like they came to a UCAS fair here, they like did a little tour, they like looked round, and then they were in their second year of paramedic science by the time I saw them on campus. And then I supported graduation, and I saw them graduating, which was really
so cool.
Yeah. And they were from Stowmarket, and they were very adamant that they didn't want to move away from home. So if you're a health student, it's really different to like any other student that you'll get, because you are on placement for like 10 weeks at a time. So I always say to students that we work with in the local schools, if that's really the route that you want to go down, I would highly recommend staying as close to home as possible, if you can, if that's your circumstance, because moving away from home and having to work like a 10-hour, 12-hour shift, and then going back to your student flat and needing to make your own dinner or do your own washing, it's a lot to handle when you may be like 18, 19, 20 and leaving home for the first time. So that's what this student said. He lived in Stowmarket. He did move here in his second year, and he loved it and said that he really enjoyed living in Athena Hall. But he said that first year, when it was like that integration into uni, a lot of stuff was like quite stressful. He's like, I lived at home. I went home after every shift. You know, mum made me dinner, did my washing, got a roast dinner every Sunday. And then by the time it came around to second year, he was like, oh, now I'm in the swing of this now, like now I'll move away. So yeah, that was like a good success story, and that happens all the time with my team. So our team are out at loads of different schools, and we always see students that we've supported or we've seen at like a taster day, and we've talked to them one-to-one, and then they've applied here and have thrived here, and they've gone on to like leave and do really fun stuff.
That sounds incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
So what really drew you to the university?
Yeah. So I was a secondary school teacher. So I was a secondary school teacher in Sudbury, and I was working in drama. So that's my background. I went to drama school and did drama teaching, and then I lived in London. So I did my drama school years in London, and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I fell into teaching, moved back to Suffolk, and taught at a secondary school. Was doing drama, teaching. And then I think I got to that point where I was like, I'm 23, do I want to like stay teaching forever, or do I want to try and experience something a little bit different? And this job just randomly popped up, I think when it was like the old Suffolk Jobs Direct, for those of you that are listening that know what that website was. I don't think it's there anymore, I think it's been rebranded. But it just came up, and I was like, do you know what, it sounds really interesting. Like it just sounds like I still get to work with young people, I still get to be creative, I still get to like be in front of young people loads, which is what I loved about teaching, but I don't get any of the marking, parents' evenings, working on a weekend, all that other stuff that people don't like about teaching. I don't have to do that. So I went for it, I think just on a bit of a whim, like let's see what happens, I can always get back to teaching. And then I just didn't really look back. So it wasn't, it sounds awful to say on a podcast, but it wasn't really like about the University of Suffolk. It was just the job looked really cool. And then, yeah, it sort of just evolved from there. I've been here for 6 years and it feels like it hasn't been that long, which I think is a good thing. It hasn't dragged on. Yeah, I love it. I love being here. I love the stuff that we do. I like the staff members that we have. So yeah, that's why I haven't left.
That's great. So in terms of when you're working day to day, I guess it varies quite a lot in what you do.
Yeah, it does. Because we kind of manage to they're very similar, but they are very different things in access and participation plans and the NICO Take Your Place programme. Every day is very busy and every day is very varied. So I line manage directly 5 people. So I have 5 people that go out into schools and deliver what we do and do things out in the local community. So I guess, a big part of my job role is line management as well as project management of the 2 projects and programmes that we have going. I am on campus 2 or 3 days a week, and I try and cram those 2 or 3 days a week with as many in-person meetings as I can. So my team always laugh because I get in really early in the morning because I live quite far away, so I like to get in early and avoid Ipswich traffic because I just cannot sit on Star Lane for the time that it sometimes takes me. So I get here early, and I have an hour before the day starts, before anyone else is in, where I'm right, get my head into the day. And then from about 9 o'clock, I won't sit back at a desk. So I never sit at a desk. My team always laugh because I sit at a desk and they're like, but you're never there. Always in meetings or going out to see stuff that some of the staff are doing or being involved in some of the projects and programmes that they're setting up. I try and be as hands-on as possible because I think that's a good thing to do in the line of work that we do. And then at-home days are catching up, prepping, and doing some of that data analysis stuff, prepping for programmes. Yeah, looking forward, always thinking about the next year and the year after that. And I think the biggest part of our role is I guess this is when we talk about the data and what the data tells us, but what are we doing now that is what's that going to look like in 2 years' time? What is that going to do in 2 years' time? So yeah, it's all that kind of looking forward, strategizing, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've already sort of spoken about how rewarding the job can be sometimes, when you see that transition from, students going from school all the way through to college and university and then graduating. So in terms of on a more sort of smaller scale day to day, what do you say the best part of your job is?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm biased, but we did win Team of the Year last year at the Staff Awards. My team are, I think, the best team in the uni. Not I think, we are the best team because we won the Team of the Year award at Staff Awards. But my team are so passionate, so driven, so creative, and they, I think above everything, are the nicest team in the world. I think the biggest thing about leading a team and being a leader in any institution or workplace is how do you create that kind of team ethos, and how do you I don't want to say inspire because that sounds I was just going to say a really rude word then, but that just sounds really I don't know, just inspire just sounds I don't know, a bit too go out and inspire. But how do you our team is, the work that we do is full on. It's full on every single day. It is really busy and you have massive crunch points where you're the summer terms are always really busy because that's when the schools, GCSE students are gone and schools are right now we want every single year 9 student to go to a university campus visit. And you might have weeks where you're just doing 10 campus visits in a row. So it can get really busy. So part of being a leader, I think, and leading a team and supporting a team is how do you create that kind of ethos, that kind of attitude of we've got this, we're supporting each other, we can do this. And so I think my team do that really well for each other. It's not something that myself or our head of department or the other manager that we have, it's not something that we have to do that much focus on anymore. I think at the beginning of our team kind of developing, we did a lot of team development stuff, but now it's just so natural that our team support one another. We do really nice things for each other, every birthday someone gets a card, if someone gets engaged, has a baby, buys a house, gets a dog, anything we celebrate it. Yeah. Our team work out in the community every day, so we're rarely on campus together. So every month we have a team meeting that lasts about 2.5 hours. And the first half an hour of that meeting is us doing an agenda item which is called Highlight, Challenge and Appreciation. And every team member goes round, including managers, heads, admin, officers, everyone. And everyone gives like a highlight of the past months. And that can be personal or work highlights. A challenge of the last month, again, like someone's moved house recently, so they were like, my challenge is moving house. And an appreciation for another team member. And it takes about half an hour, and we've had people like drop into our team meetings that have been like, this is such a like, I don't know, it's like a scout circle where we're just patting each other on the back singing hymns around a campfire. But it's such a lovely thing to do because it means that they don't see each other often, they're not on campus all the time, but it reconnects people, and that connection makes people go, I want to help, I want to support. You've had a tough time, your challenge was a campus visit that you're finding tough, I'll jump in and I'll help you. Or I want to appreciate you because you've helped me, or I want to appreciate you because every day when I come into the office you make me a cup of tea. Like, it's those small things that I think makes our team the best team. So yeah, that's the best bit about my day to day, is the team. And they're like in tune with each other. I don't think I've ever worked in a place or with a team that they're so in tune with each other, where like last week I was just sat eating lunch and was just like, I just need to like sit on my own for like 10 minutes and not have anyone talk to me. And like no one did, like no one approached me, which I don't know if that said that I was like setting off signals of like, I don't know. But then a few days later someone was like, shall we go do like a wellbeing walk next week when we're on campus and we can have our meeting walking? Because I feel like you could probably do with like just getting out of the office every so often when you're in. And I just know for a fact that that's because they picked up on that vibe that I was giving off that day of like, I just need like a bit of non-talking time, or like, don't come near me. And they do that for each other constantly. So yeah, I've never known a team like it, that it's like that well-being side of work that is so vital and is so massively overlooked sometimes, that yeah, they're like pick each other up often, which is nice.
That's brilliant. So in terms of your role, is there anything that, if you could pick one thing that you're most proud of?
Oh my god. One thing that I'm most proud of. There's so many things.
Yeah.
There's so many things. Right, okay. I've got two. No, I've got three. Can I do three?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So the first one really quickly is during COVID. So I started my management job in January 2020. And it's the first time I've ever managed, or line managed. And then 3 months later we went into a lockdown. And I am so proud of a team where everything is face-to-face, everything that we do is face-to-face, and how overnight, I know everyone will say this about their team, but overnight the whole programme had to change, and how they adapted during COVID and the creative stuff that they came up with to still work with students, to still keep contact with students, to still support students in schools and teachers was just amazing. So yeah, that was like a big thing that I'm proud of. The second thing is a really small thing, but one of my members of staff, Amy Hayes, shout out to Miss Hayes, she was in a role last year, because we had a bit of a restructure last year, where she was an access officer, and she was working with very specific groups in the community in Ipswich and Suffolk, supporting very specific students in accessing us as an institution. And she went to a careers fair in the Nova Hotel. Maybe it was a town hall. Anyway, details don't matter. But she met a young person who was there with his mum, and he has very severe autism. And he got talking to Amy, who was on a stall and was like prospectuses. And I think maybe it was the mum that approached first, but this young person was like very nervous, very apprehensive. I think wanted to go to university very specifically to do a very specific course, but like didn't have the confidence. I don't think maybe had some of the skill set of like making that next step into like making an application. Not the skill set, but like maybe the knowledge and understanding. And I think just a bit of that apprehension of like, is a person like me with autism, am I going to struggle at uni? Am I going to struggle at an open day? And what Amy did was just, I don't think, it was like nothing short of amazing. She took this student's, I think it was like the mother's email address, and kept in like regular contact with the mum. So it wasn't direct with the student. She then invited the mum and the student to an open day here, and met them personally at the open day and showed them around. So open days here can be really overwhelming, there's a lot of people. So she made sure that this young person like had the space that they needed, like could take time out when they needed, talk to the right academics at the right times when it wasn't really loud, and like the WAD where we do like the meetings of academics and open days. And then that person made an application here, and they are now here in their second year. Going into their second year? Yeah. Just finished their first year, I think, going into their second year. And Amy has changed roles slightly, but she still keeps in touch with him. They have a support officer here from Student Life Team, so Amy just chats to that person occasionally. We had a situation a few weeks ago where something had happened in one of his classes that he was worried about. So like the mum contacted Amy just to say, is there anything that you could pick up or just put us in the right direction? And that real like one-to-one support to that one student has made, I mean, he's here and he wouldn't have been. He's going to graduate and probably do really well and have loads of experiences if it wasn't for the work that we do in the community and for Amy Hayes. So that's an amazing story. And the last one, I said I was going to be quick, is part of our new Access and Participation Plan. We are looking at trying to ensure that students that transition into the University of Suffolk are well supported, specifically students from underrepresented backgrounds. So we, over the last year, have developed a new transition programme that is launching this summer to students that are leaving school or FE college, or mature students that are joining us this summer. And it is supporting them throughout the summer and all the way through their first year of their study with us. And there's loads of support available on that programme. It's called Ignite Your Spark. You can find out about it on our University of Suffolk web pages. You can go to Amy Hayes' LinkedIn page if you want to go to her LinkedIn page, because she's who is leading on this programme with Charlotte Imlach. And they have devised this whole programme of activity, of transition activity for students from underrepresented backgrounds to support them in every aspect in their first year here with us, to make sure that they are carrying on into their second year study, because that's when we see that there's quite a large dropout rate with some underrepresented students. And then hopefully, fingers crossed, they progress and graduate in line with their peers in the future. So yeah, that is a new programme. It's called Ignite Your Spark. Go look at it on the University of Suffolk web pages. It'll give you all the information that you need. But it is something that I am unbelievably proud of, because this time last year I told Amy and Charlotte, I need a transition programme. Can you go and design me one? And they designed something that is phenomenal. So yeah, I'm proud of that.
That's amazing. I mean, I think you should be like singing your own praise. You know, you don't limit yourself to one thing you're proud of. Go for it.
Say all of that. Oh my god, she's full of herself.
No, I mean, like, you know, if you're doing great things, you should be letting everyone know that you're doing great things. Obviously, you know, it's really great to hear all of the amazing opportunities that are out there for students who have no idea what's available to them, and then being told that they will be absolutely fine at university and they'll have the support that they need is really, really important.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I guess along that sort of vein, what advice would you give to new students, you know, considering joining this university?
Ooh, what advice would I give? Budget. Before you even leave home or leave wherever you are and either come and live here or you're travelling and you're commuting, budget. Because money at the moment is the biggest issue on everyone's lips, on everyone's thoughts. And it is an investment to go to uni, and you have to look at it as an investment. And you have to look at it as, what am I gaining from this investment? And how can I ensure that this investment, I'm getting the most from this investment? So I think in that vein, the first is just budget. Do not, if you are 18 and you've left home and you've gone to live in Athena Hall, get that first payment of your student finance and go crazy. Because that's what I did when I went to uni, and then I lived off 11p noodles from Sainsbury's for about a month. And I don't even think they're 11p anymore with the inflation. So don't do that. Budget. And look at your budget, actively look at it and really think about how much things cost. Along with that, you can work as a student. You can 100% work. You can manage, on a lot of the courses here, you can manage part-time work with study. Don't do too much because you still want to study, but you can absolutely manage some extra earnings, so do look into those options. And then, I guess it's just looking at, as I said, the university is an investment. So if you're here, if you want to be a student that just passes, gets a degree, and enjoys it, and is a student that wants to go out all the time, go for it. Be social, do what you want to do. However, there is so much stuff available here as an institution that you can get so much out of your time here that when you leave and you are writing your CV and you're making applications to graduate jobs, you should be looking at this as, how much can I get from the extortionate fees that I am paying? How much can I get back so that when I leave here, I'm going into the best graduate job that I could possibly get, or whatever it is that you want to do next or in the future. So take up all the career stuff that is on offer, take up the micro placements, take up the internships, go work as a student ambassador because you get paid and you get experience of working and it gives you something to put on your CV. Go make connections, talk to your academic tutors, do the extra bit. Yeah, give back. I think give back to the community of Suffolk. So if there's things that are on offer that means that as a student you're giving back to your community, litter picking, all of that stuff, like, you know, give back as well because it's a good thing to do for your mental health and well-being. So yeah, see it as an investment. Take as much from it as you can and budget. Don't live off 11p noodles because they're not 11p anymore.
No.
That's very true.
Yeah. That tells you how old I am. That's how little noodles cost when I was at uni.
That's great. Really interesting conversation. I've certainly learned a lot more about access and participation and what you do and the importance of it.
Yeah.
So come to the final question now, which is our answer one, ask one question.
I need to think about what to ask.
Yeah. So firstly, we'll get you to answer a question from previous guest, which is from Christopher Hill, who's the Royal Literary Fellow at the uni.
Oh, it's going to be a book question.
So this is, I mean, whether it be now or maybe when you're a student, the question he has is, what is or was your worst writing habit?
Oh, okay. I went to drama school, so I didn't have to do a lot of writing because I was in rehearsals every day, so I very rarely had to write. I'm actually going to say, that was really loud, sorry for those who are listening. I am currently studying a master's part-time here at the uni, and I am writing my dissertation currently. And I think for someone who has come from a very performance-based background, so I did do a dissertation for my undergrad, but it definitely wasn't like, I wouldn't say, it was all about performance. I don't think it was that well written. I would say for me, my biggest, if I could use, and you can probably get it with how I talk too, if I could use, I would use 10 words rather than using one. So I think the biggest thing my tutors on my dissertation course, my master's course, has taught me is that the academic writing, the worst type of academic writing is the research papers that you pick up, that you read and you go, this makes no sense, I can't understand this. And then you go, I'm an imposter, I can never write like that. Because they write like 10 words to one. Like, why say one word when you could write 10? And I think I fall into that trap where I try and sound too clever and I try and be really flowery with my language. Whereas actually, if you're a good research writer, if you're a good writer of research, a good critical writer, you should be writing for an audience of anyone, so that anyone can pick up your research, anyone can pick up your paper and be able to read it and understand it, even if they're not from your field. So that is what I'm bad at, but it's what I think I want to be better at because of what you said. That's
what we were talking about on the podcast with Christopher about other people that aren't from your field being able to understand it. So,
absolutely. I think everyone falls into that trap at universities because everyone's here going, oh God, everyone else is cleverer than me. Then you go and you're like, oh, actually, we're all just like bumbling along. Actually, there are some very clever academics here, but do you know what I mean? You don't need to write really, really flowery in order to get across the message that you're trying to say. Probably should try and learn that with talking. Too limited to talk or ramble.
No, it's all good. I mean, I definitely fall into that trap. I always just sort of try and fluff out the word count and just, you know.
Maybe that's what it is. It's like, I just don't know if I have enough to say so I'm just trying to fluff it out. Yeah, maybe.
Do you have a question that you wanted to ask to our next guest?
Okay, I'll go in like a similar like question sort of vein as like what the person before me did, which was related to their role. So, how do I phrase this? When you were a young person in secondary school, thinking about applying to university, what was the one thing that was holding you back?
That's a great question.
That's a good question.
Maybe I could get the research from this.
That's a really good question.
Yeah, ask that to every guest.
I could put that in the...
that's just going to become a regular question.
It's going to be a regular question. We'll reference you as well.
Every time. She wants to know.
Yeah. Cool, so until next time, goodbye from Daisy.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, guys.
Goodbye from Emily.
Goodbye.
Goodbye from me. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Student Experience podcast. If you would like to be a future guest, email studentexperiencesteam@uos.ac.uk, or follow the links to our podcast application form through our Brightspace page. You can also reach out to us through our Instagram page, UOS_student experience.